Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Headlines. I've made a new friend on Blue Sky. I am here with Frank Smith. He's owner of Avalanche Pass Consulting, business consulting, sales consulting. He has 25 years of experience. He's a Harvard trained negotiator, which he incorporates into his sales. And we're going to go into that when he tells us about his company. A little bit of regular housekeeping here. You know that we always pick somebody to donate proceeds to and help. And Frank has been lovely enough to nominate our own Brit. He's over in Ukraine now, as everybody knows. I am allowed to say he just got off the front lines, a very, very harrowing escape. And he got hit with a lot of shrapnel from things landing on him. He needs some equipment and some kit and boots replaced. So if anybody wants to be generous enough, we'll be dropping his PayPal link in the chat and you can help him out. So I'm going to go over to Frank now, and he can tell us a little bit about his business and his 25 years of consulting experience. Frank?
Thanks, Annette. How is everybody today? I hope everybody's doing well. And Annette, thank you for letting me be here. So Annette and I were just trading some emails back and forth, to DMs back and forth on Blue Sky, and she asked, she was looking for people to talk about things that they do for a living. And what I do for a living is I work with basically any type of company in helping them build their sales strategy, their organizational strategy, and then a lot of it has to do with what type of team you build in order to execute and implement that strategy. And so I've been at this for over 25 years. You can probably tell by the hair. I haven't gone bald, but it used to be black. And we just had a real nice conversation about this might be something that the Shills audience would be interested in just learning a little bit about some team dynamics and things that we do to help organizations, basically thrive and create that atmosphere of high performance, which is what everybody wants. And so that's basically what I do. And I'm just, I'm real thrilled to be here. Because this is one of the first times that I'm doing a live stream. So I'm having a lot of fun right now.
That's great. I'm happy you're here too. And our viewers might be wondering, well, what does this have to do with what the Shills do? It's very relevant what Frank does. We're experiencing a lot of changes in the job market. People might find themselves going back to work, changing work with everything that's happening with the government firings. But also, I got a lot from this because I am kind of a team leader here. I like to say we're all equals because we all work really hard on the Shills, but I learned a lot about myself, and we're going to be, thank you to Frank, we're going to be personalizing this a little bit towards me, and I gave him permission to do this. So it's not just telling about, basically wrote what we do, and we're going to personalize it. It could be a little bit funny, and it's also going to be insightful. But for me, I learned a lot just from the times that Frank and I were talking, because I have been through this consulting process before. And Frank knows I didn't have a good experience. And one thing I can say, if I had Frank as the consultant who came in, I think I would have had a lot better attitude. I probably would have thrived in my job instead of saying, get out of here, get out of here. So we're going to...
Thank you.
I mean it though. I really have learned a lot, and that's why I'm giving permission for Frank to share some of the results that we got through some surveys that I did. But I think what we'll do right now is go right into, Frank has been lovely enough to allow us to show part of his presentation when he goes into the team dynamics. So I'm going to be putting up a few slides here, and he's going to be talking about that. I do want to encourage everybody to ask some questions. We will take questions. And then I do have some questions that are very relevant to how the world is right now that we'll be talking about after a little while. So let me go ahead and get our beautiful presentation up that Frank has done for us. And we will go from there. All right, Frank,
So
you got it.
basically what we're just going to walk through here is a few slides around what you're trying to accomplish with the team and what kind of process the team goes through as far as production and productivity go through, and then talk about characteristics of team members. And basically, the thing that you have is you start out with an idea, you start out with a project, you start out with an assignment, then you have to go out and you have to find people to implement that. And as a team leader, what you're doing is basically managing not just the expectations of the people that you're working the project for, but the development of all the things that have to happen behind the scenes. So with the light bulb, what we were looking at was, hey, this is the project, and all of that gray that's behind there, those are all of the activities and the things that are going on all the time, every day, during a whole type of project or a group that you're trying to run. And so, Annette, if you go to the next slide, there's 4 different stages of team development. And basically, when you look at the team development stages, anytime you introduce new members to a team, you're in a forming stage. So when you are a new manager and you're taking over a team, you're technically in a forming stage because you're the new manager taking over the team. And then you go through a series of things like storming, where you're learning about your team members, you're learning about the business, you're learning about how to accomplish goals, and things start to norm after that storming stage. And then following the norming stage, you have where you really want to be with any type of team, and that's at the high achievement, the performance stage. And so what you see here is a team leader is really looking at productivity during all 4 of these, because whoever you're working for never wants to see productivity on the low end. They'll accept it for a little while because there's that blip of forming the team or having new members come on board. But it's a relatively short period of time where you have forming and then your storming stages, because these are the 2 areas where you really start to have some either flat performance or negative performance, but things just aren't gelled enough to see that lift in performance where it starts to increase. So as a team leader, what you're looking to do is form the team. You'll communicate what the assignments are for everybody on the team, what the goals are, and then get through that storming phase. There's always a time limit to how long you want to be in there. But you want to get through that pretty quickly, because that's where you're going to have the most negative effect on your performance. Once you get into the norming and the performing stages, things start to settle down. Productivity comes, increases, and then you'll start to see that performance level when you start seeing everybody on your team performing at the levels that they should be, which means everybody's achieving their goals. So on this next slide, where we talk about team characteristics, whenever I get involved with leading a team or becoming a project leader, you start out wanting to have certain characteristics of the team itself, okay? And so the team as an entity, you can call it an ecosystem, whatever you want, and you treat it as its own entity. There's thousands of different characteristics that a team leader is looking for in that team. And what I have on this slide here is basically a handful of those characteristics that I'm always looking for the team to have that I'm managing. The top one is always going to be communication. And we're going to be talking about that throughout the next few slides and when we talk about the individual characteristics. But if you're leading a team, what you should be doing is putting down basically on paper what are the characteristics that I'm going to need of this team in order to achieve these goals? Okay. And some of the ones that are most important to me, in addition to communications, is people's ability to solve problems, how adaptable they are, because in the changing environment that we have today, you really need to have people who are adaptable and flexible. And along with that goes resilience, because what you'll find is, it's pivoting, right? You'll find that something that you're trying to work with the team isn't working out as well as you think it should be, and so you have to make changes. And when you have people that are adaptable, solving problems, and resilient, you'll tend to be able to stick in that norming performing stages more of the time than less, because you introduced a big change.
One
And
of the
so,
things I want to interject here, that Frank helped me with when we were talking is, this isn't what he's talking about here, doesn't just apply to businesses that make money. This applies to volunteer teams too. I wanted to make sure that I told him, listen, I get value out of this because pretty much every YouTube team that you come across, unless they're 5 million subscribers and a payroll, we're all volunteer. And it's good to know this, just to get along, because we do have the times when we bring somebody new along and we've got to get them up to speed on how we do things, teaching them, and they also have their ideas of what they want to do. But I won't go on too long. But I wanted to make that point, is that this is very relevant to YouTube teams also, not just businesses out there that are looking to make sales goals and things like that.
yeah, and that's a really good point, because we spent quite a bit of time talking about, um, basically the 4 stages of team development applies whether you're working with volunteers or whether you're working with people that are paid or commissioned or whatever. When you bring a group of people together around, a central project or a goal, you're going to experience these stages of team development. And going into, managing that organization, it's always good to have, what is it that you're looking for within all of the team members. Now, you're probably not going to pass up on a volunteer who shows up at a nonprofit, but what you certainly can do is see, hey, I see this strength in you, maybe not this one. And that might have some impact on how you assign that volunteer to whatever work that's going to be going on for the specific project. And so on the next slide, what we have is, individual characteristics and personal characteristics. And so one of the things that we like to do at the very beginning of any type of forming a team is, we call this style awareness. It's a shortened version of the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which, if anybody cares about that, that was basically created to test people who were going to be on submarines, because on a submarine you needed one captain and the rest of the people needed to be followers. And so Myers-Briggs really stemmed out of that need that the Navy had. And what we do is we do a shortened version of that so that we can get within the ballpark of, what are your dominant traits? What are your dominant characteristics? And what we're looking to do is expose people to what their dominant traits are, and be able to identify dominant traits in people that they're working with or speaking to, so that you can create a productive environment. And that's really all we're trying to do with this. And so our instrument that we use basically categorizes people in 4 quadrants: thinker, doer, actor, friend. And most of the time, when you go through this style awareness questionnaire, you're going to find that you have characteristics within each one of these quadrants. And that's what those numbers represent in each quadrant. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But on the personal characteristics side of it, when we're looking at, I've got a team and my top thing is communication, resilience, problem solving. I'm going to be looking at what are the personal characteristics that I'm looking for to have that good mix of people on the team. And so on the thinker side, their value is going to be reason. So if you think about somebody who bases their decision on facts and figures and having information, their chief value is going to be reason. On the doer side, their chief value is action. They'll still take facts, they'll still take information, but they're the ones that are going to tend to be moving quicker, right? Being able to decide faster. Maybe they decide on 2 pieces of information instead of 4, like somebody else might want. An actor, their value is harmony. They're looking to have this harmonious, this nice, this happy relationship, because in that world, having harmony on a team means that it will be highly productive. And then the value for a friend is excellence. This is somebody who sees the world as they support, they give, and they're looking always to be at 100% of what they can give and what they can bring to the table. So we say that their value is excellence. And when you look at the quadrant, we say what we're looking for is, how do I create a working environment, or in a lot of the cases that I work with, a sales environment, where I can have a good communication channel between the 2 parties, or the parties made up of 3 or 4 people. Because in today's world, there's very rarely one person who's making a decision today. There's usually 3 or 4. And so what we're looking for is, if I'm scoring really high on thinker and lower on friend, I might have some conflict that takes place because I'm not naturally that style. Okay. And so if you look at this chart, we say that the thinker and the doer, they share common ground because they base their decisions on facts. The friend and the actor, they share common ground in that lower quadrant because they use their instincts or their gut, their feelings on how they make a decision. The doer and the actor, we say they share common ground because these are people that are typically tellers. They're going to say, you know what, I like your idea, but here's what we're going to do. And then on the 4th side, the thinker and the friend side, they share common ground because they're askers. A thinker and a friend are always going to ask a series of questions to get to what they're looking for in terms of making a decisions. So those are the common areas. The conflicts really arise when you cross the planes. And so when you have somebody whose value is action, with somebody who, they value excellence and they move slower than a doer and a friend are going to have inherent conflicts because of just their characteristics. Same thing with a thinker and an actor. Somebody who bases their decision on reason and facts, and somebody who bases their decision on feelings and intuition. Inherent conflict is going to occur there. And so what we do inside the programs that we run is we take a look at each individual's score across the spectrum here and point out that, if you scored really high in thinker and lower in actor, the most energy that you're going to have to expend is when you're in that situation. Because you might want to load up on the facts and the reasoning with somebody who only needs one piece of information or one fact to be able to make a decision. Same thing with the crossover between the friend and the doer. So Annette, I think we were going to stop there, and you may have had a couple of questions so that we could talk a little bit about the scores that you scored on.
Well, Frank, should we let that secret out now?
I think so. I think we might want to do that since I kind of let that out halfway.
So let me tell everybody a little bit about this. These are my scores: 40, 24, 12, and 24. And Frank actually sent me in a PDF and I printed this out. And honestly, you can't manipulate this because everything's a little mixed up in my mind. I'm not saying it like the process is mixed up. You cannot try to make the result something because it has like a key. You do the test and then or the survey and then it has a key and you transfer everything over and then you add everything up, multiply it by 4, and each category has a value at 25, so it would equal 100. And when I got this, I was like, oh no. But honestly, when we talked about the results, I I scored low. I'll just dox myself. I scored low in friend just because I am a thinker and and everybody who watches the Shills and watches me knows that I jump into action. The best way I can help someone and be a friend is by doing something for them, a fundraiser, getting the word out, something like that. So this actually, I'm probably not that person that you're going to run up to and I'm going to give you like this 20-minute hug. My hug is trying to make things better for you. So I don't feel so bad about that. But I do, amongst people in my small circle that I'm close to, I am a pretty good friend. So that's Frank can tell a little bit. And Frank, I don't mind if you actually say some things you observed in me, with these results. I don't mind that at all. Because I think it's important for people to realize that there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with looking at these numbers because it helped me say, you know what? It was self-realization. I am this person, but you know what? It's how I get things done. For the Shills, I'm probably a little more serious than the rest of them. I wish I was more of a friend who had more beers sometimes. But honestly, I think I do best just trying to help everybody out, get everybody trained and in their spot so that we can just make things happen for the world that we try to help. So Frank, do you want to comment on things that I know we didn't talk about this, so this is kind of springing this on you, but something you observed in me and along with these numbers?
Yeah, so it's always fun to go through these, and when we gave Annette the questionnaire, we asked, have one of your friends, your spouse, or somebody close to you fill it out on you and see, what their perceptions are. But it didn't really surprise me that 64, 40, and 24 was in the top quadrant with Annette, where you need the facts, you need the information. This is what I need in order to do this. I'll talk to you and relationship build and have a conversation with you. But here's the things that I need in order to produce the show. Okay, so you need to do this, 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 and this, and I need it by this date, this date, this date. Here's where we'll review it. And then if there's any changes that we're going to make, this is the date that we have to have everything done by. And in my interaction with Annette, I'm fine with that because I'm a high doer, high thinker too. And so it's very organized. All right. And, in order to, produce a show, obviously you have to be very organized and you have to have everything all ready to go. And, not in such a manner where you're saying to yourself, well, don't worry about it. I think that'll work itself out. We'll be fine. It has to be, no, it's this, this, and this. And here's what has to happen because we're producing a live show. So I think that, clearly, we got through that, which was no big deal. But something that I wanted to mention is, Annette said, there's no wrong answer here, which there never is when you're working with personal characteristics. This is just who we are, right? This is how we interact with other people on a team, whatever. But when you look at these scores, what you're looking for is where am I high and where am I low? So if I'm high up on this kind of quadrant. All right, that makes sense. I use facts a lot. I'm a little bit lower on the intuitive. My gut tells me this, and you just become more aware of it. We're not saying go out and change yourself, right? You scored a 12 on friend. You want to work on that. Okay. See if you can go, smile more at a few people, whatever. We're not saying that at all. We're just saying that, this is who you are. This is how you approach life. This is how you approach, a team environment. And the only point that we make is, hey, in a conversation where your score was lower on the friend side and your score is really high on the thinker side, all that means is you might have to expend a little bit more energy at bringing out the instinct or the gut feeling so that you can create a good environment to have communication. So in a sales environment, which is predominantly, and this works also, I think, very well in volunteer organizations, is what you're trying to do is be aware that this is how I approach people, but I'm approaching somebody who's the opposite of me. I'm the one who's going to have to do the work on altering my style a little bit, because the person I'm talking to, they may not have gone through the same style awareness questionnaire, and they don't know, what their dominant trait is. In that kind of situation, we always say, particularly in a sales situation, that sales associate, that sales executive, you're the one who's responsible for creating a good communication environment, not the client. So if the client is a friend and you happen to be a doer, it's not their job they don't adapt to you. You have to adapt to them. And that's why, one of the top things in, my care about list on a team is having people that are flexible and adaptable, because in that type of sales environment, you're adapting all day long with a lot of, different people.
Absolutely. Frank, we have a couple of questions I want to get in here. Let me just take the slide down so you're up here. Now, these questions came from the audience. They're not coming from me. So the first one, and honestly, I think you'll understand this. I don't, so I'm just going to read it verbatim. Does Frank think that PAC or PAC profiles from transactional analysis still has relevance in today's methods for team building and interactions?
That's a really good question, because there's a lot of instruments that are out there that, measure, I guess, or slot people into characteristics. I would say that as long as, let me go back a second. I've been using the style awareness in Myers-Briggs for like 20 years now. All right. It's basically the same questionnaire that I used 20 years ago that I used with Annette. And what I typically do before I introduce that into an organization is I have the people that I'm going to be working with take the questionnaire. They take it and we have a discussion. But the first thing that we ask is, hey, does it sound like you? Right? Validate the awareness questionnaire with the person who's hiring you or going to be working with you, so that they agree that this is an instrument that is accurate, if you will. So PAC, it's accurate. It's still relevant because it's a personality, it's a characteristic measurement. And as long as you know what you're talking about with that particular instrument and the content that goes around it, I think they're all relevant. I choose to use this one because I've got certified in it, and it's been pretty relevant for a long time through a lot of different changes in the world. Does that make sense? Whoever asked that question, let me know if that made sense to you.
That question actually came from one of our own team members, Liam
Okay.
Whitfield.
Right,
I didn't want to say it up front because I didn't want to have you have any, ideas about it, but he's very intelligent. He's actually from the UK, and he's a smart guy. Next question from Duncan Stewart, one of our viewers. What about the 5 paradigms of the analyst, idealist, realist, pragmatist, and synthesis styles?
Same type of thing. You'll find that there's programs out there that have 6 categories, 5 categories, 4 categories. Myers-Briggs, there's 16 different types. Okay, I think that they're all relevant, and what's most important is how you introduce this questionnaire with the team that you're managing, and how you communicate what you're going to be using the information for. All right. So in this particular case, what I'm introducing to a sales team is, hey, we want you to learn a little bit about yourself and your style so that we can create better selling environments. And that's the purpose of this style awareness. Same thing applies with the 5 from what you're talking about. As long as you position it with what your total outcome is or goal is for the program, I think they're all relevant as long as you know your material that you're working with and why you use that specific instrument instead of something else for the group that you're working with.
I love this system. Frank and I told him some of my previous experiences, and I think I ended up taking, a survey that was really thick. It was pages after pages after pages. And it actually wasn't for the military because I wasn't on a submarine. It was for when I was working in a really high-end dental practice. But I really like this breakdown here because I think it's not simple, but it's simplified and it's a lot easier to understand, and the crossovers and the strength and where you need improvement. So great question there from everybody. I appreciate that.
One
Frank,
more thing that I would add to that is most of the time, this all aligns to whatever the organizational goals were. So nothing really works great in organizations. There's a lot that has to a lot of moving parts that have to move in the right direction for everything to be great. Collins, Good to Great, that book, all of those things that he talks about. But with this, it starts with, hey, organization, what are you really trying to accomplish here? Okay. What are your top 5 for what you want to accomplish this year in 2025 for your organization? And how does, Frank coming in doing a team building session for your key account group align to, your organizational goals? And the first thing that they'll tell you right off the bat is, well, if the key account group hits all of their revenue goals, we'll hit our goals. Great, I got that. That's going to be the case everywhere. Everybody has revenue goals. Everybody has financial goals. But let's talk about, what are you building here in order to, basically build longevity for your entire organization. And when you're having that conversation and you're aligning what you're doing at the line level, where your people are out in the field, now it makes a lot more sense because it's aligned to, the overall organizational goal, which is aligned to the mission, value statement, and all of that fun stuff. So, that first slide that you saw with the light bulb and all of the great things happening behind it, think of the organization and what the organizational goals are for that, particular organization. And this is just one component that's going to align to everything else.
I think too, one of the important things that we talked about was you have these personal characteristics amongst your team, but you have them, whether they're your customers, your viewing audience. We see it a lot in YouTube in the chat. We have the people like right now, they're putting some very good analytical comments in there. They've been through this. And then we have some other people who they're more, saying, hi, good friend, how are you? And my awareness is so much higher about people out there who are, I guess, who are, I don't know, buying our product, but there are viewers and they like what they see and they find it interesting. So my mind is completely changed about this, and I really appreciate that. And I'm not plugging you just because I can.
No, but
It's really been interesting. Yeah.
There's something to be said that if I know that I'm going into a negotiation or a sales call with somebody who is a thinker, all right, I'm going to be really sharp with the facts that I bring to the table, because that's one of the things that they're going to focus on. Okay. I can take those same facts and present them in a little bit different way that is appealing to a friend or an actor, that speaks to harmony or speaks to excellence. Okay. And so the rest of the program, after the sales team goes through this, is okay, great. Now let's figure out how you're going to bring your solution to the market, knowing that this person is going to ask you for facts to support your claims. How are you going to do that? And so that's part of what comes next when you're working with people. And I would argue that it's the same way for volunteers as it is for anybody who's paid. Is now what am I going to do with this stuff? All right, so I know I'm a thinker. Great. Now what? Well, here's what happens when you get in front of the client and you're a key account executive or a senior manager or whatever, and you're trying to create this relationship with, to create this giant $1 million partnership. And you know that the gentleman or the people that you're going to be speaking to, the panel of people, is made up of thinkers and doers. Okay. That's a whole different presentation style and, information that you're presenting to that group than it would be if it were, a group of friends and actors. And so a lot of this is, hey, we just laid the groundwork for, as a team leader, now I understand my people a little bit more, and I'm going to be able to communicate with them a little bit differently because they're all different styles. But we're taking this out into the field so that we can create just a better communication environment had we not done this.
Here we go. Do we want to go on to the next slide? And then
Sure.
we'll gather up some questions for after we're done here. So let me go on to leadership and coaching.
And so we talked about this just a little bit by, having the conversation around the 4 quadrants. But as a leader, now you have a real good understanding of what your team's personal characteristics are, where the strengths are in terms of, I don't want to say strengths, where the intensity is on what you labeled as your key characteristics of who you want, what you want your team to look about. And now what you have to do is lead and coach. And so communication is always going to fall to the top of the list. And in starting with communicating to your team members, the first thing that I like to do is let the team know what the overall team objective is, and then let each team member know what their role is to achieve that goal. And it's very specific. So, a lot of people, you're probably familiar with SMART goals, being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. That's a great model to use when you want to be very specific with communicating to a team member what their goals and objectives are, that tie to the overall team, the overall goal of the team. And so what I recommend is, once you've had that conversation, and everybody understands what, everybody knows what the expectations are, everybody knows how we're going to get there. You have a very specific set of goals and objectives for each individual. Now you can manage it. And managing it is, regular check-ins, milestones, and anytime you're doing a check-in or a meeting with somebody in a one-on-one situation, you're given feedback. Feedback could be positive. Feedback could be, there's some things we need to change. And that's where an adjustment in the plan comes from. Now, leadership and coaching, there's, hundreds of thousands of different ways to train people on how to be a good leader and a good coach. And again, that goes to how you align everything to what the overall organizational objectives are. But I just chose, the top 3 here, where you'll see communication is always key. Here's what I expect you to do. I'm being very specific. Here's how we're going to measure it. And what I've learned in my career is what gets measured gets done. And so when you're measuring that, you're giving feedback, and then you're adjusting for, that outcome. And it looks really simple. And, when you have that, that team in that performance level, that high performing stage, it's, managing a team is a lot of fun anyway. But when you get those individuals humming and all working together, pointed, rowing in the same direction at the same, level of achievement, it's really fun to watch, because they see what they're capable of doing. And when you have that, there's, always a little bit of competition within the team itself, but that little bit of competition is always going to get you that incremental growth that you're looking for, particularly in the business.
Our just put a personal note on this. Everyone that's on the Shills team, they're in our chat, and that's what people see, or our viewers see. But what they don't see is the things that they go through and do in the background. And when our channel owners Dick and Dunk do a stream, and they're really good at what they do. But it does take a team to support that. We've got research, we've got AI graphics, we've got people that are contributing to each one of those areas with their own contributions. And when a stream gets finished, we all feel it organically. It's really nice. And we're all just like, wow, great show. And, we do get a lot of positive feedback. And the great thing is, reason I love our team too, is that we also do, like right in that moment when a stream finishes and we're all talking, we'll give feedback. We'll say, oh, if we would have done this, or if we would have done that. And it's a team thing. It's not just the support team, it's Dick and Dunk in there doing it. And always the ideas, going, we could do this next time, or we could make this better. So, I would like to just say that when the team comes together and everything works, and whether you're in a business, whether you're in a volunteer situation, even medical practice, dental practice, like I was in, when something happens and it all goes right, it just lifts everybody. And you're just like, yes. So,
That's absolutely true.
It's a great feeling. And I think too, that if, you can't go into any situation, like I kind of came into this with some skills, but I kind of just got things going. But this has helped me, because I know I can be better, and I know that everybody recognizes that all the team members recognize themselves in this too. And I think it'll just help in the long run, where we'll all just, be more effective. So I want to thank you for that, for being here.
Of course, this was great. I really appreciate you having me. So that's pretty
Fun
much
too.
all I had for today. If there's any other questions, feel free.
I'm going to take the slides down, and I do want to go through some questions that we had I had prepared before. So we'll do that. I do want to encourage everybody who's listening to put some questions out there. Tag at the Shills, and Shayna can put them in the room for us. So let me get into my notes here. So one of the things, and I think we've all been in this position, in whether it be work or even sports, parents who are coaching kids and things like that. Was Frank, how do you handle people when you're coaching and they come in and they say, well, you know what, if we do it this way, it'll work. And their ideas are always better than someone else's. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so that's first of all, what you want to have is you want to have people coming to you with their ideas, right? So the fact that they're doing that, beyond the type of personality that they are, they know that they can come to you, open door policy or whatever. I think that when they know what the overall goal is for what you're trying to accomplish, you can have a discussion around, does that really fit with what we're trying to do, or is it something that we should put off to the side for now and maybe do it later? So, it goes back to, the cliche of no idea is a bad idea, right? You always want to have people coming to the table, talking to you about what their ideas are, which, by the way, is going to give you some insight as to, how they're thinking, how they're feeling about everything anyway. So communication is always good. That's at the top of my list. When it's a bad idea, right? Because that's going to be a bad idea. I think you have the license to say, hey, that's a bad idea, and here's why. Okay. Because in terms of working with adults, that's one way that you can work with it, because you're just being direct. You're telling them the truth, but you're telling them why. And why is usually going to end up being because it doesn't really fit with what we're trying to accomplish here. Okay. The other way to handle it is maybe not as a direct, but in the same vein of, I understand what you're saying. I like the way you're thinking, but it's really not appropriate for now because this is what we're trying to accomplish. So, it all depends upon, what you're trying to accomplish as a team member in that particular case. And I can tell you that the times that I've been most direct, where I've said to somebody, that's really not a good idea, or that's not what we're going to do now, had to do with they needed to understand that there's only one leader on the team, and they needed to be able to kind of fall in line. So those are specifically the types of things that I would do, because there's something else going on, which is why you want it to be more direct.
Good answer. I think too, I don't think there's any bad ideas. Sometimes when people come into teams and they're new, there's things that have already been tried also. And I let people know, you know what, it's a great idea. We tried it. It's not really working, but maybe if we go down a different road and we can do that, it might be something we can do. And that way too, people, because that happens all the time. We try new stuff, Dick and Dunk try new stuff, and you know really fast if it's a fail. So, and some people come in and they don't know what we've already tried, and I think I'd like to think that we do welcome ideas, on our
That's
team.
fair. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've done is sometimes I have business rules that are for the team, right? One of them was don't bring a problem to the table without a solution. And so you know what you're doing is you're setting the tone for you know, if you have a problem with something, you know, make sure you don't just raise it as a problem, you bring a solution to the table. And so when you have that kind of environment, particularly with a team, if somebody brings you a solution or an idea that's not going to work, you can just turn around and tell them, well, that just what you said, Annette. We tried that before, and here's why we're not going to do it again, because, you know, and the reason why, right? So there's a little bit more left to, you know, nice idea, but we tried that one before, and here's why we're not going to try it again. Because you always want them to come back with another solution, right? Keep the ideas coming, because that's where all the good ideas come from.
Absolutely. And our team does have really good ideas. I feel really, I'll use the word blessed. So, we talked a little bit before too about when you have different generations. You've got somebody in your group that you're training that's 22 years old. Maybe you've got someone who's 72 years old. And our demographics on our channel, we're going from 40 into the 80s. So it's not as wide as 22 to 72. And we talked a little bit too about attention spans. 22-year-olds might have an attention span of 5 to 7 seconds, whereas older folks were willing to kind of, and yes, I'll put myself into older, not doxing, but we tend to think and chew on things a little bit, you know, and contemplate. Can you comment a little bit on your techniques or approaches with different generations would be in one team, possibly?
Yeah, so that happens a lot now. And you know, the experience scale is you know, sometimes looks like this, right? Because you have a 22-year-old who's just starting out, and then you know, 72-year-old who's you know, seen it all. And within you know, both of them, there's strengths that you saw based on, you know, the team characteristics that you wanted to build the team around, that brought them to the team in the first place. Okay. So I would say if there's a 22-year-old on my sales team, it's because I hired him, and I hired him for a reason. When you have those specific roles and responsibilities and assignments and goals, I think you create a level playing field for everybody in order to you know, have them work with the team, achieve what they need to achieve, and, you know, contribute overall. Now, the 72-year-olds' goals might be a little bit different than the 22-year-olds. In fact, it will be a lot different, because on the 22-year-old side, you probably have some things in there that are going to help them develop their experience within, you know, the profession of selling, for example, okay, or the profession of whatever, for example. And I think that because you've kind of set the standard of what you're expecting from everybody, but the goals might be a little bit different, you've set the standard for that 22-year-old to rise to the level that they need to rise to in order to be a highly productive team member. And then by the same token, you're managing that 72-year-old away from bad habits that they've collected over the years, because those will exist. And so when you have that kind of standard set up as a team leader, you have license to, you know, hey, you have to work harder to get the experience, and you need to stop doing these things because they're not productive anymore.
And that's something that we do here, you know, in the work market too. And is that sometimes a company will say, I'm going to pick the person that has least amount experience because I don't have to untrain them. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, there's it all depends upon how, you know, how good of a leader you are with that. Yeah, I don't want to hire a guy that's, you know, 60 years old because he's got all of these bad habits. I'm going to hire somebody who's 22 and I want them to go out and just do what I'm telling them to do. That's a really good way to, maybe have that as one team member and, prove it out that this is the way that it'll work. But, it stifles development, growth, and all of those fun things that you need, particularly in a sales organization when somebody has to think on their own and they haven't been trained to do that. It's a big problem.
Yeah, it's nice to see relationships, mentoring, learning within the team too. So we have another question from Liam Wakefield. Has Frank ever found that someone's profile balance changes over time as team dynamics alters, such as a thinker becoming more of a doer, or is that a sign of team imbalance?
Really good question. What I've seen over the years is that you tend to grow higher in the quadrant that you're already highest in. So when I first did this, I was a doer at, like 32. I'm a doer at like 48 now. Okay. When I go through the scoring. And that means that I lost something along the way somewhere else, and it just happens to be friend. Okay. So the short answer to your question is yes. You can see some changes within your characteristics, but I've not encountered somebody flipping their entire profile. What I see more of is if I'm high in these, I get higher. And if I'm low in these, I get lower. Good question. That's a really good question, though.
Yeah, I think Liam he made a comment. He's been through some of this before. I want to read some comments to you because I know you can't see them. We're getting a lot of really good feedback.
That's good to hear. I like that.
Duncan Stewart said at 72, maybe some health topics become more relevant, which is true. When you work with older folks, they tend to talk about their health a little bit more. One of our team members, Mexigirl, said, I've seen the younger ones come in and think they know it all, and she has to bite her tongue, which is true. You have to give, the younger ones a little bit of tolerance, because if they're talking, they honestly, I've found that, younger people, they do want to be heard when they respect you. They want to talk to you and they want to get your feedback and things. So, and not everything we hear, goes over like a great idea, but
if Mexigirl is, let's say Mexigirl is a team leader, okay, you're managing a team.
I think she is in real life, to be honest.
Well, you have all the license in the world to shut that down, because you're the team leader, and if you set the expectations and your team rules, I would expect that you would do that. I learned that from one of my mentors, and he said sometimes you just have to tell them no, because if you don't, it's not good for them. Okay, and it's because you're the leader, you're expected to tell people no, or stop doing that, or I'm going to take you and have hey, Annette, that's a decent point, but let's you and I talk about that after the meeting. And then after the meeting, if it was not relevant, or they were trying to, take all the energy out or have all of the attention there, that's managing right now, where now you have to say, hey, look, I like your contributions, but you're 22 years old and there's a lot more experience that's out there. You have to stop being a know-it-all. Those things are good things to bring to the table, because that's learning and development for that person. And most of the time they won't like hearing it right then, but later on they'll get the point. Hey, Annette, I can't hear you.
Sorry. I just
All
got
right.
the alert. So we were I told you about an experience that I had at was helping a university open their dental clinic, and there was a young man that I was down in the ordering with the lady who orders all the supplies and everything, and this young man walks in, and he says, "Excuse me, can I have a conversation?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, sure. What's going on? Do you need some help with something?" He goes, "No, I'm supposed to pick somebody old like you to talk to because you know how to have conversations and we don't." And I had said to him, "Wait a second, what's going on?" He goes, "No, it's for my class. I have a class called Conversational English because we don't know how to have conversations because we grew up playing video games and texting, and so we're supposed to find, and." Believe me, I didn't feel I would go old, but to him, I was old. And he said, and I said, "Well, you know what? Here's the great thing. We're already having a conversation. It just me asking you a question, you telling me what your class is, and honestly, within a matter of 3 minutes, literally we had a conversation. How do you feel about that?" And he's like, "Oh my gosh, we did." So, how do you feel about, or what's your opinion? Do you see communication issues with younger people because of how they grew up versus older generations, which weren't immersed in that so much?
I do. And in the environments that I'm in, there's a lot of I want to tell you about what I have to sell you, what I have to offer, instead of talking to me about what I might be looking for or what I need. And so I think there's a huge gap there because a lot of the times that I get called in to talk to some people is, hey, we're not hitting our goals. We got to figure something out. Okay, great. Let me go observe a couple of calls and see what's happening. Well, here's the problem. Nobody's asking any questions to your client. They're not, having a conversation. They're dropping in and saying, hey, I've got this great widget here. It's cool. This is what it does. It'll help you out here, and it costs this. And what we miss is the whole part of, you don't know anything about my business. You just showed up. You're presenting me with something, and now you're asking me to spend money that I wasn't going to spend this morning when I woke up. So no. And they just go on to the next one and they play a numbers game. This is in a sales environment. So I think that there's a lot to be said around the pace at which a younger generation approaches a conversation versus the pace the older generation approaches. And, my pace is, let me get to know you a little bit, business, what do you care about most? What do how do you rate people? And those are all not just direct questions. Those are things that you're having a conversation around. And, you start to share common ground, which, by the way, is one of the, core foundations and principles for the negotiation program is, find common ground. You really can't find common ground with people until you have a conversation with them. And I find that, the younger generation is quick to show me what I have to, fix your life without finding out if we had any common ground in the first place.
Make sure I unmute myself there to make that mistake again. Uh, so, last question. And then anybody, if you have questions for Frank, please get them in now. We do have time to answer them. I'm going to ask one. This is a really big question that we did talk about, and I think it's really important. And I loved Frank's answer on this. He doesn't even know what the question is yet. But what I do want to, you got it. I know you do. But what I do want to say is we've been dropping, just a reminder, we've been dropping Britt's link in the chat. I'm allowed to say a few things. Britt was on the front lines. They did get stuck. They did get pinned down, but he's back safe now. Took a little while and a lot of planning, but he and about 3 other of his brothers got out. They were under constant bombardment with attacks from drones dropping things and also artillery. There was a lot of shrapnel that came, and it luckily, because you all helped fundraise for him to get more body armor. It did not penetrate through anything, but it did shred a lot of his equipment. So we're asking, Frank was nice enough, to say, I can pick who we want to donate to today, because everybody knows I usually pick somebody if I have a guest who has a charity or something, or a 501c3, we go ahead and do that. And he said, go ahead and, who needs it. And I would really implore everyone to help Britt out, because he some of that stuff that he just got, he has to replace. And also, they were not able to take any vehicles in, so they were on foot, and he needs some new boots. So thank you to everyone who's already contributed to him. Again, this war's not stopping. They're still at the front lines defending, and everybody needs our help. And so we're picking Britt on this one. So thank you for taking the time to listen to that and for helping. I really appreciate that. I have got the question I have is, AI is so big right now, and everybody is, oh, your job's going to get taken from AI. AI can do this. AI can do that. Frank and I had a conversation. I do use some AI because it can save time. It can give ideas. It can abbreviate some things down. And what Frank said was, what could take all day, maybe takes an hour, especially like for social media posts or some outlines that I have to do. But I would love you to hear Frank's take on AI in the workplace.
So the way that I described this was, I was in an airport at the gate waiting with a friend of mine. He was an IT guy. This is going back like 20, maybe 25 years. And he pointed to somebody who had a laptop. It was like, one of the earlier versions. And on that laptop was Excel. And that guy pointed at it. My friend pointed at it. And he said, that right there is the smartest person in the area. And they have a tool that is going to be the tool that's going to help them be more productive at their job, no matter where they go. And I really took that to heart, because what it said was, hey, there's going to be things that are advancements in technology, whatever, that you have to really embrace in order to stay productive. Now, notice I didn't say keep up with the Joneses, okay? There's a big difference between, hey, I want to stay productive and I want to keep up with somebody. And so I see AI as an opportunity to learn something that's going to help me be more productive. I can have an all-day conversation with somebody about, is it going to eliminate positions? Is that good for the world? Is that bad for the world? And that I put in kind of a separate bucket, right? Close that one up, because that's a conversation that I can have sometime, some other time. But for my own development, my own advancement, boy, I really should know what's going on with AI and what are the options that are out there and how I might be able to use it to be more productive, because everybody that I'm talking to is already doing the same thing on how they can be more productive. So my clients, they're using it all the time, and they're using it to get smart. They're using it to gather information, and they're using it to give them direction, not just with the data they house, that's first-party data inside their organization, but then just doing what-if scenarios, which everybody loves, when they take that and they attach it to something else, and they get, an answer that they probably weren't even thinking of, okay? And I see that all as my responsibility to, at least be smart with it so that I can advance what I'm trying to do. Now, the example that Annette and I were talking about was I used it the other day to help somebody put together some descriptions that they needed for a site that they were putting together. And, normally that would have taken probably a full day to go through the descriptions and get it down to the exact number of words that you needed for this particular program. But what I did was I took my outline, dropped it into ChatGPT, asked a couple of questions, and what came out was not the final version, but something that really made sense to me. And so there was still some editing that had to be done on the final version, but instead of it being an 8-hour project, it turned into an hour, and it made me more productive. Okay, which is always a good thing. And if it's something that's going to make you more productive, I think it's your responsibility to get underneath it pretty quick and leave the other stuff off to the side, because that's always, that's going to change every day. But, if you're left behind on something that's a tool that's out there that you can do to increase your productivity or get better at what you're doing, absolutely should be at the top of your list of learning to do.
I agree. I think that our team's done a good job of embracing it, and I try to take opportunities to actually teach people how to use simple things in AI. The example we used was on social media. When you're limited to 300 characters on a post, put in, give me 200 character post, which does this, this, and this, and then you add your links and you're up to 300. Maybe you got to take out something here and something there. But those posts are quite effective because they're concise. They use the right words. They get the point across. And AI just does a more efficient job at, especially for me. And I think some people are more concise thinkers, but how it works for me specifically is I am a thinker. Sometimes I'm an overthinker. Sometimes I just write too many words, and it's taught me that I can still get my point across in fewer words. So it's teaching me too. We also have. I want to put a plug in for our AI alchemist Carpazian on our team. He is an unbelievable AI artist, and I don't think people really get how difficult that is when you just put in words in a description so that you could get it to generate a graphic that literally has everything you want in it, because a picture tells 1,000, or picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And the people who are embracing that are, they're incredible to me. And so I love that our team, and we're not super young, and I love that our generation is embracing it. And so, kudos to everybody on the team. I probably don't say it enough.
I mean, it's a great tool. It's a great tool. It's not going away, by the way, either. It's not like, oh, I'm not going to look at that.
Definitely not. I think we're ready for wrap ups here. I want to go ahead, Frank. I'm going to just do a few thank yous and one last announcement, and then I will give you the last word. I want to thank Frank for enlightening me and changing how I feel about people that come into the workplace who want to optimize performance and teamwork and things like that. For years, I had a horrible experience. And for years, I had this chip on my shoulder every time I heard the word consultant. And I want to thank Frank for changing that for me.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I hope that someday, maybe I feel like, there are no coincidences in this world. People come into our lives for a certain reason, and you're here in mine. And I hope I've done some good for you too.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank our team. We have Liam Wakefield, Mexican girl, who are in the chat conversing and saying hello to everybody. Shayna Caldwell, who's on the Shills account, the voice of the Shills today. We do have other team members. We have Super Chat Matt, who is an icon here. He actually kind of repeats when people say wonderful things or they donate. And we also have PJ CNET, who's one of our researchers. And I already mentioned Carpazian, who's on our team. Dick Dawson, who's our sound engineer, producer. He's everything. He's our leader here. He's our true leader. And Dunk, his partner with the channel, he's wonderful, and they both have a great sense of humor. Tonight we should have a pub chat. So anybody who wants to hang out and just wind down your weekend, we'll be doing that. And to repeat again, please help Britt out if you can. And I do want to have everybody check out. I know we probably can't drop these links right now, but please go over to Operator Starsky's channel in his community posts. I've been putting updates all week about Janine. And everybody knows that she had a horrible accident with a hit and run. And she is doing amazingly well. She came out of her coma. She's up and walking around. She's with the therapist. She's got a few more days in the hospital to just make sure everything's working okay. But in South Africa, they don't have insurance like we do. And Operator Starsky, he's just wonderful. He put up a community post with Janine's links, and this is going to be a longer thing. So if you can go check that out and help out that, I would really appreciate it. She thanks you for everybody who signed the e-card, and she'll be around soon when she gets out of the hospital and she can get more on the platforms and come and say hi to everybody again. So Frank, can you give me your last thoughts and what you'd like to leave people with about your company and Avalanche Pass, about your coaching, your expertise? This is your time to shine. Oh, did we lose? Nope. There he is. Did we lose Frank? Let me see here. Frank, are you still here with us, Frank?
I'm still here.
Okay. I lost you for a minute.
I'm sorry, I'm still here. I just I hit something and I hit the camera button. Sorry about that.
You know what? That's the amazing part about live is stuff like that happens and we just laugh right through it because there's nothing you can do. It's just a blooper.
I just I saw. Oh, that's why I'm not there. I had a great time today. Thanks for everybody for listening. You can find me on Blue Sky. I'm there as Frank Smith or Avalanche Pass. AvalanchePass.com is my website, and you can learn more about me there. Anybody who's on today, if you would DM me on Blue Sky so that I can follow you. If you're on Blue Sky, that'd be great. Always like to, increase the network. And I just appreciate everybody with all their great questions that they had today. Annette, thanks for getting me all ready and prepared, and the team behind the scenes. I mean, you guys made this really simple. So, and I'm looking forward to catching up with anybody. And if you all have something that you just like to discuss or, brainstorm, noodle for a while, drop that in the DM on Blue Sky and we'll get together.
And all of Frank's links are in the description of the video. So you can, his Blue Sky is there, email, and his website, which also has contact information. So, well, on that note, this is where we wave goodbye and thank everybody for being here, and see you soon.
Thank you.